Hey Husker fans, Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. This is our post-spring recap on the wide receivers and the tight ends. Hey everybody, we got an interesting group at wide receiver. It's very young, and it's both old and young, but there's not a lot in between. So we'll talk about that wide receiver group, then we'll go to the tight ends. At wide receiver, you have a lot of you've got Billy Kemp, Marcus Washington, Joshua Fleeks, all sort of in their final years as receivers at the collegiate level. It won't surprise me if those are your three guys, like right there. Maybe you add Isaiah Garcia Castaneda to that, and Xavier Betts. We'll see with Xavier Betts. I think his status is still, we'll see how it goes through the summer. But those are the five guys that are there. Three of those guys are out of here after this year, and then Garcia, Castaneda, and Betts, I think, are both in their fourth or fifth years. Then you've got a bunch of incoming freshmen, and some of those freshmen are going to have to pan out. There's just no other way to put that. You put a little bit of money on Malachi Coleman. He's probably the most talented of the group, but you just never know. So Malachi Coleman is somebody that you're going to want to watch. I think that the most polished guys in that group may be Jaden Doss and Demetrius Bell. They both have a little bit, bigger frames. They've worked on their frames. Doss at Kansas City, Ray Peck High School, and then Bell, who was playing in Nashville. I think those are two to watch, the guys that are a little bit more polished. Then they've got those young guys that they're bringing in who are track stars. There's no other way to put it. Bryce Turner in Bay City, Texas, Jalen Lloyd at Omaha West Side, and then Jeremiah Charles out of Texas, the same school where Bob Wager comes from, the tight ends coach. They're all in the program. They're all super track stars, incredible athletes who are still working on becoming maybe complete receivers. Not sure if any of those three guys will contribute right away, but you never know. I think Nebraska will take whatever it can get from those six freshmen, and if there's 4 or 5 of them that can play right away, I think they're going to play. Because next year, the 3 top receivers on the team, Kemp, Washington, and maybe Fleeks, they're not going to be there. I mean, this is their last year of football, and so Nebraska's got to have an eye toward developing some of these younger players, and they're probably going to have to go out to the transfer portal again in the offseason, next offseason, and maybe add 1 or 2 more players just to make sure that they've got sort of the right balance of experience and talent. So that's what's going on at the wide receiver spot. There's some walk-ons that I think they like. Alex Bullock is one of them. Ty Hahn's another one. Some younger guys that maybe could play in that role who are probably going to be valuable as walk-ons. But watch those 6 freshmen. They did not bring them in here so that they could all sit. Some of them are going to have to play, and I'm sure they're hoping that some of those guys make a pretty important impact. Tight end's probably one of the stronger groups on the team, so long as it stays healthy. Nate Boerkircher is now on scholarship, and Nate Boerkircher is a pretty good football player. I think they like where he's at. Obviously, his predecessor, Bob Wager's predecessor, liked who he was as a player. The previous tight ends coach, he liked Nate Boerkircher, even redshirted him so that he could kind of get an extra year of development. So Boerkircher is on scholarship now, going into his sophomore year, and dare I say he'll be one of the, top 10 tight ends, maybe in the Big Ten. And then after that, you got Thomas Fidone, and I think Thomas Fidone is still getting back to 100%, still getting back to full speed. And then you've got Arik Gilbert. I've heard that first name pronounced both ways. The Georgia transfer, he had a couple of drops in the spring game. Those were disappointing. We don't know if he's going to play yet or not because he needs a waiver to play, although I think Georgia's going to support that waiver. But man, he can move for 275, 280 pounds. He can move. He's got some ability to kind of get down the field, and so that's a guy that you got to watch too. Then they've got some young players. Now A.J. Rollins did move from tight end to defensive end, so he's not in that option in that room. But Janiron Bonner's basically moved to an H-back tight end. Right, he did play some fullback in the spring game, but I think you'll see Bonner in that tight end role at times. Jake Applegate was banged up, I think, for the spring game, but I think they like what he might bring to the table. They did have some transfers. Obviously, James Carney transferred out, but they still got Chase Androff there. He's more of an inline tight end. I like what Nebraska has at that position. I like what they're eventually going to bring in, and I think that position, among all the other positions on offense, is going to be loved on by the offensive coordinator, and anytime that happens, you attract good football players. And so Nebraska's had good tight ends, by the way, over the last 5 or 6 years with Jack Stoll and Austin Allen and Travis Vokolek. I don't see any reason why that's not going to continue. I think Borkirch is going to have a 25 to 30 grab season. I think Fedoni might have 15 to 20 grabs on his own, and you never know with Gilbert. I think he's a wild card X factor. It may take him a couple of years to get back where he was as a true freshman at LSU, but this is a group I think you can get behind. It's one of the 5 or 6 best groups in the Big Ten. Okay, that's the wide receiver and tight end review for spring. Thanks, Husker fans.